Today I'm going to be presenting my portfolio for Linux Administration. This is the midterm check-in video, so I will be looking for feedback from this video as well and using that to improve my final presentation. A little bit about me. I've been working in the restaurant industry for the past decade or so and had recently found an interest in IT, started studying it at Northern Essex, and eventually it led me to network security. For the past couple of years, I've been getting my feet wet in some scripting languages, virtual environments, relational databases, both Linux and Windows servers. Have gotten quite familiar with Active Directory and completed a number of labs on that as well, which I'm entertaining the idea of including. One of my proudest projects is a return on investment dollar cost averaging calculator that I had built as a final project for programming for IT last semester. It was written in Python, and originally it scraped HTML data from a website, an HTML table, for historical Bitcoin prices as well as real-time Bitcoin prices, and performed a number of calculations in the background and delivered the results to the user in a nice graphical user interface. The original program looked something like this right here. The user would, it's pretty basic, but type in some information and it would perform calculations and return output to the screen. You also had the option of saving all of these queries you've been running and outputting that data to a well-organized CSV file. That project eventually developed into something else entirely. I began working on it with a classmate, Kyle Manley, which a lot of you have probably had classes with. And over quarantine, him and I developed it into a command line interface version as well as a web application that is hosted on our very own virtual Linux server running a LAMP stack, or was running a LAMP stack. We've since decided that the hardware on that server wasn't suitable for a program of this kind, so we used a client-side language like JavaScript to put some of that computational power on the user instead of wearing out our server, because we were finding it wasn't able to handle that many requests and it was pretty easy to crash the server. This developed into, from that kind of dodgy looking graphical user interface to on my actual website about Bitcoin, which I will leave a link to for you to check out and play with this as well. But this is hosted on our own server. You pick a date that you want to buy Bitcoin on in the past, an amount, and it will calculate all these things here, mainly your return on investment and gross profit, and it can kind of get the wheels turning, hopefully getting people interested in investing in Bitcoin. But enough about that. Another project I wanted to highlight in my portfolio was the user management script for Linux users that we just did a couple of weeks ago. I elected to write mine in Python, and what this script does is automates the process of onboarding new Linux users. It does this through reading either a text file or could be modified to read a CSV file as well or something similar. And it takes this list of names, assigns them groups and permissions depending on what group they're in. Does things like limit disk usage and provides each user with a skeleton directory so that you don't have to go through and make individual file systems for each user. This can save a lot of time, and this is something that I would feel very comfortable discussing in an interview because I think it's relevant to what we hope to do in our field. Another project I'm pretty proud of was something I had done last semester in information security. I did a 10-minute long tutorial video about how to perform a SQL injection on a web application that's hosted on a test Apache web server. So basically I was able to go in and manipulate or put some malicious SQL statements in and make this web application serve me all the contents of its database, the private contents of its database. And then I spend the end of the video talking about preventative measures, how you can sanitize your data and use prepared statements to mitigate the risk of an attack like this, because this is the kind of thing that happens or that hackers use to dump databases with credit card information and social security numbers and all sorts of private information you don't want floating around, and it is a very, very common attack vector. Something else I chose to include is my Bitcoin Lightning node. This wasn't related to school at all, but this is actually a node, a real node that I run from a Raspberry Pi that helps support the Bitcoin network. It is capable of exchanging information about my copy of the Bitcoin blockchain with other nodes randomly all over the world, creating a partial mesh network, which makes the Bitcoin network so secure. So it's just thousands of people like me running these that is the backbone of the Bitcoin network. We are keeping record of the Bitcoin blockchain. That's why it is so censorship resistant and hard to shut down, short of shutting down the internet and the TCP/IP layer. This actually runs on the Tor network, so I've gotten my feet wet in that and done a little scripting involving that and played with some of the configurations, and it's been a really interesting learning experience. It also serves as a router for transactions for the secondary Lightning layer on the Bitcoin network, where it is providing liquidity to the network and also gossiping with a number of other nodes and routing these transactions through other people's nodes from point A to point G or however many hops it needs to take in the network. Again, a very strong, resilient partial mesh network all over the world, very fast. And I will leave information about that at the end of my presentation and on the website as well. And the final thing I wanted to showcase in my portfolio here was my technical documentation for installing Ubuntu server and CentOS using the command line only. This was a pretty challenging task. It took me a while to make these guides. There was certainly a learning curve with the command line only stuff, and I had to do a lot of extra reading on what were appropriate commands to put in to get the results that I wanted to and how I should go about configuring this. But in the end, I was left with 2 fully functioning servers with a number of other extras included, like Docker for virtualization and SSH to communicate between the different virtual machines. And that is it for my portfolio for now. I think by the end of the semester, I'd like to have this put up on my website and kind of maybe a little more concise with some more interactive material so that people can look further into my projects. Everything that you have seen here today is on my GitHub, and you can check out the links in there, as well as the web application for the return on investment calculator is at getcoin.io. And again, I will leave links for all this. Thank you. Bye.